Hello, hello. Am I on? All right, good. I'm on. Let me get my very un-Steve Jobs slides up. All right. So this is going to be kind of random. So we'll see if I can pull this off. So this is my first time in Barcelona. It's pretty awesome here. I like it so far. I want to make sure, I think everyone's kind of met me already at small conferences. I like small conferences, but you know, I'm not a scary guy. So if you haven't talked to me yet, come up and talk to me. I'm really only a dick online, so it's because everyone else is a dick online, so it's only fair, right? So go ahead and come and talk to me. Assuming my voice holds up. I was up till like 3 or 4 last night hanging out, So originally I was going to do this presentation about just the scams, right? Just these scams that I see programmers kind of falling into, the patterns and whatnot. And I didn't like it at all. It was too negative even for me, right? So a whole book could be written on it. And actually, I think I may just write a whole book on it and call it Programming Motherfucker the Book. I've been thinking about doing something like that. So instead, I decided it's going to be about scams and programming motherfucker and pretty much just whatever the fuck I want, right? So first off, thanks to the organizers, because one of the reasons why I came here, normally I don't do Ruby conferences too much, but I came here because the organizers, Codegram, they actually did the programming motherfucker t-shirt, the one I'm wearing, right? And is it weird that I'm wearing my own face? Is this like, it's like wearing the t-shirt for the band. If you go to their concert, you're kind of like a douchebag, you know? Like And so basically, they sort of like helped it becomes this sort of weird underground joke movement, you know? Like everyone's on an inside, you know, in on the joke. And they really helped get it there, so that's one of the reasons why I'm here. So the talk I want to do is actually what seems to be knocking people off track from programming motherfucker. So it's the scams, the movements, the communities, the people, and it seems to be the things that just like enslave us for like 10, 20 years. And then we just do stupid shit like object-oriented programming or functional programming. And Java, Ruby. No. So what I see is a common set of cons, right? And these are kind of like just patterns. So knowing about them, then you can defend against them. And the thing to keep in mind is like, this is fuzzy human stuff. And I know programmers are like, must have Boolean, must have my bits, right? But no, this is all just social, fuzzy, no definitions really. I'm just kind of like basically coming up with the patterns and talking about, you know, what I see. And you may never ever actually see any of these things. What actually might happen is if you're involved in one, like if you're being a victim of one, you definitely won't see it, right? You ever have that friend who totally loves something you think is just stupid, right? Well, they can't tell it's stupid because they're involved in it and they totally love it. And then afterwards, after they get out of it, they have the Stockholm Syndrome problem. And then it's like 2 years later, they go, dude, that was really stupid. I have no idea why I was doing that. So it's the same thing. So these are the scams that I see. And I've actually talked about a few of these. So did anyone see my Mountain West Ruby conf I did about this one scam called the Che-up, right? So you know, like Che Guevara. Anyways, so basically this is what it is. It's a propaganda tactic. And what they do is they come in and they say, we're a community of something or other, right? So we're a community of web developers, okay? That's not bad. People like community. Community works, right? And then they find some secret humiliation you have. For example, we are a community of web developers. We have been humiliated by threads for years. And then they create an enemy that their supposed thing solves. That we're a community of web developers who've been humiliated by threads for years. And therefore, we should use events and Node.js to defeat the enemy. So then they go, all right, so all of us gang up together on these people and defeat them, right? And what ends up happening is then they get profit and power, right? It's a common pattern. So we could do the same thing with agile technologies, any software development methodology. It's so common that it's kind of the way you market software and anything that's software related. So I actually sort of think like the CHE part, the community, humiliation, and enemy, is just sort of marketing, right? And really the bad part is when you get a bunch of idiots ganging up on people, the unity aspect, and if there's secret power and profit. That's really where it goes wrong, right? So let's look at Kent Beck's new manifesto. And who knows that Kent Beck has a new manifesto? right? Okay, first off, the first manifesto was kind of vague and sort of blah, but I got wrapped up in like, yeah, fuck those waterfall guys. I hate filling out TPS reports. Yeah, programming. Right? And then what happened is, well, then the agile stuff started becoming less about programming and more about, filling out reports and doing rundown charts and all that stuff. So now you're seeing the agile guys come out with their new manifesto, and this time it's like team vision and discipline over individuals' interaction or processes. So they're adding on. It's basically their manifestos are recursive, so they can just keep calling manifesto on manifesto and it'll just keep going over the years, Validated learning over working software. And you read this stuff, you're kind of like, what the fuck does that mean? It's so vague. It doesn't really mean shit. Everyone's going to have their own definition of it, so therefore, you can sell stuff to them. Customer discovery over customer collaboration. They're trying to work in startups, right? Look at the wording. It's all hippy-dippy San Francisco wording, right? It's all customer discovery instead of customer collaboration. Customer collaboration was working with a bunch of dickheads at Chrysler, but customer discovery is working with a bunch of dickheads at Facebook. Right? Initiating change over responding to change, right? Okay, right. So here's Bob Martin's new manifesto, or the software craftsmanship new manifesto. Not only working software, but also well-crafted software. Not only responding to change, but also steadily adding value. What the fuck does that mean, right? But people are wrapped up in this like stupid-ass sort of che-up. They're implying something, right? They're saying, okay, well, the previous guys, the agile guys have been humiliating us for years. We're a community of software developers, and the agile guys, or the waterfall guys, or those guys, or the RUP guys have been humiliating us for years. Therefore, we should defeat our enemy with software craftsmanship, or Kent Beck, or whatever we're doing there. Not only customer collaboration, but also productive partnerships. Like, what, are they married? Right? They're going to reproduce productive, I don't know, right? So here's what I decided to do. I decided to write their manifestos for the next, up to 2100. Because about every 10 years seems to be the pattern. So I'm just I'm gonna predict the future of the planet Earth, and I'm gonna say hey, they're gonna be whores the whole time and try to make money with their manifestos, so let me help them out, right? So first off, I think these guys are gonna be kind of old by about this time, so it's gonna be Social Security over healthcare and discount prices and stability. So that's the next manifesto is gonna be all about that. And then I think there's going to be a primate uprising in 2030. So that one's going to be praising our monkey lord, bananas, flinging feces, and death to humans over Social Security, healthcare, discount prices, stability over whatever they had this year, right? And then they're going to die. That's going to be really sad for all the agile guys. And it's going to be continuing the agile cause, working with Monkey++, the latest programming language, surviving death, surviving monkeys. Or serving monkeys. But then aliens are going to come to the planet Earth, and they're going to free us from the monkeys, but they're going to be our new overlords. So it's praising our Gorgon overlords, death to monkeys, Gorgon sexual intercourse, because they're kind of twisted, and then lasers, because lasers are cool. 2060, the singularity happens, so the robots overthrow the aliens that overthrew the monkeys, but they're all still warring, and humans are just kind of fucked, right? So what do we got? We got praising our robot overlords over praising our Gorgon lords, over continuing the agile cause, over praising our monkey lords, over Social Security, over whatever the fuck they're doing now. Maintenance of robots, disposing of Gorgon bodies, and living robotically. That's going to be the next one. There's a lot of these, because I decided to go to 2100 for some stupid reason. So anyways, freedom for humans, death to monkeys, death to aliens, death to robots. So basically we have a revolution, and they're like, so the guys trying to pitch Agile, they're like, hey, yo, we could totally help you with that revolution thing you got going on. We got the software. Check out our new manifesto. It's freedom for humans over praising robot overlords, over, all the stuff that happened. So then we have rebuilding. But now the humans are our overlords. Fuck. All right, so praising our human overlords, feudal societies, pleasing King Ralph. Oh, I only have 3. I guess I just got confused then. Then we finally leave planet Earth because it's totally fucked. We just got to leave the planet Earth. So it's colonization, community building, disease prevention, spacefaring, hyperdrive software design. Okay, and then maybe in 2100, finally at 2100, after all these manifestos, they've been stacked on each other like recursive manifesto function calling patterns, and then they might go programming, right? So that's an example of like some of these che-up patterns, the propaganda patterns that you see. And there's certain ways you can defend against this. Literally, like the stuff that I kind of do. I try to undoctrinate people, right? I try to point out stupid things. Like, why does that manifesto somehow resonate with everybody? And then you turn off your thinking bit, right? But I also think it's just sort of ingrained in open source, right? That's just the way it seems the marketing has to go. Like, if you can't sell Node.js or Rails or any new language without going, well, we're better than those guys, right? You can't sell Haskell unless you go, well, static typing is better than this. It just seems to be the way programmers like to see their stuff, right? Like to see their marketing. So it's also kind of the reason I don't do open source anymore, because I don't do it as much, because I really hate trying to market things that way, right? So what you do is spot any community, any rhetoric where they use community, that probably means there's something behind it that's like a che-up. Find out who the enemy is, and then go hang out with them, right? Because the easiest way to figure out they're not really evil, bad guys is to hang out with them. Before everyone met me, who thought I was like an evil, super bad guy? Okay? And now that you've met me, do you think I'm a total dick? Wait, don't answer. Fuck you, man. Jesus. Let me get some water. I'm kidding. Wait, do you know karate? Okay, oh, okay. So I got an hour to kill. Let's see if I'm doing good. Oh, big red clock back there. Great. So the other thing, do your counter-propaganda like I do. So programming, motherfucker, is kind of the counter-propaganda. Everyone knows it's a joke, but they also know it's sort of not a joke. You know? I don't expect people to, like, make a process out of programming, motherfucker, but it is counter-propaganda. It sort of gives you a rallying cry to go, you know, that's kind of bullshit, right? All right, so scam number 2. If you work for free, we'll all be rich. How many people have heard this scam in the startup world and governments, open source, everything, right? So it's usually the main goal of a scam to begin with, right? Get people to work for free. You get free labor, money. The entire statement is ludicrous, though, because you're basically telling people, hey, come and work for me for free, and we'll all be rich. But how does it actually play out? It actually plays out that they make all the money. So what happens in open source and other things, you see this if you see, like, so let's say I go, man, I wish Firefox had an upload progress, a little percent telling users that one of their files is still being uploaded, right? And they go, yeah, it's fucking open source, so just fucking fix it yourself, dude. I'm like, I don't fucking work for you. Like, I'm reporting a bug, I'm a user. Yeah, but you're a programmer, you should come do it for free, right? Or employees that work at startups getting shitty second and third rate stocks, you know, after the investors, the founders, their moms, couple dogs, 3 companies down the street. After those guys are paid out, you get like, hey, here's $1,000, go buy some McDonald's. Another one is, well, I gave you my code for free, so that means you should license your code like mine. You should give me your code for free. You should come and work here. It's like, well, I thought you gave it away because you wanted people to use it. I thought you wanted people to, like, enjoy it. No. I gave it away so I could get something out of it, so you've got to work for me. Or just outright promising to let people in on the sale or let them in on the thing. I've seen this in a few open source projects. You know, they go, hey, everybody, let's collaborate. Let's come and work on this thing called Node.js. Oh, hey, let's change the contributor license agreement so Joint can buy the motherfucker, right? That's an example of you just got scammed. You went and worked for free. So here's how it works. This is actually a really common pattern in all scams. So the company of future X is, the future of project or company X is implied. Then you make the connection. Oh, if I work on this, I could be rich. And they don't really say how rich or what they're doing. Then the idea is you suggest, hey, can I come work on your thing? Can I come hack on your thing? Hey, can I come work at your company for less pay? And then they take your offer, right? Because they're kind of like, oh yeah, totally, dude. Well, I don't know, you might be able to come here. You have to pass a rigorous, you know, interview process. You have to write good code. And then you're given no money, contracts, you give secondary stock options, things like that. And when the thing finally tanks or sells, you get nearly nothing. The founders end up walking away with everything. So how do you defend against this one? Well, if you're going to work for free, work on your own stuff for free. Put up some of your own open source. I release open source as kind of like an artistic expression. It's like me saying, hey, this is something cool I made. I'd like other people to check it out. I try not to work on too many other people's projects. And one of the scams of open source is they make it seem like you have to work on other people's projects, or else you're not a buddy, you're not a part of the community. And then if you look, a lot of those projects are actually kind of secretly off running a che-up, making some money, right? So be careful. If you do work for a project, expect no return. Just be Zen Buddhist about it. Just like, hey, that's cool, you made money, I contributed, that was neat, that was like a little part of my life, you know. Don't freak out if they make tons of money. And also just stop working for free, right? Like, I think startup guys are really bad about this. They'll go and work for shitty stock options for next to nothing for 20 hours a day. They can make more as a janitor at a McDonald's, right? So the third one, I got 10 of these, so this is going to be quick. Gang mentality. This is the unity part. Also, team playerism. One dimension of this is 20 or to 50 people attacking one person. If anyone's seen me like talk about Haskell or Scala on Twitter, then you know what that's like, right? So all I got to do is just say, man, this thing is crap. What do you mean it's crap? Block, 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 block. So it's really disgusting bullying, right? I've had million-dollar companies come after me. I've had entire communities come after me. Now, I'm a pretty tough motherfucker online. I can take it, right? But I can't imagine someone who's like just trying to join a community and asking a question and getting roasted by some douchebag, you know? I just like, it's probably awful for them. So if you see this, that's just nasty shit, right? If you're gonna fight, fight fair. One-on-one, right? You know, it used to be fist fights were like one-on-one. Arguments weren't meant to be bad, they were just like debates, right? You were supposed to do it one-on-one. If you see someone debating online or talking to a troll, fine, you know, leave them to talk to it, and if they lose, that's it, right? Or ignore the troll. But if you gang up on them, you're just contributing to that stupid mentality. The other dimension, though, used by agilists, is team playerism, you know? You're either part of the gang or the enemy. Team playerism is like, oh, well, you know, if you don't like pair programming, you're not a team player. Yeah, you should be doing that thing, huh? And one of the things about the unity aspect of it that's really irritating and also dangerous is that it validates personal abuse of dissenters. So people who just disagree get personal abuse, get violence threatened on them, or being fired threatened on them, or insulting, things like that. And then you feel really validated, like, yeah, we're a community, we're badasses. And like, no, you're a gang, right? You're basically a bunch of pussies if you do that. You know, so example of that is fire anyone who hates pairing, ridicule anyone who doesn't do TDD, right? So how do you defend against this one? Speak up when gangs attack one person. Stand up for the pariahs. So, you know, hey, these are probably lonely people who are probably maybe, you know, what if they're a troll, then making friends with a troll actually turns them into less of a troll sometimes, right? Investigate why social pressure and team playerism is used rather than evidence. So if someone's coming to you and saying like, you know, everybody else is doing this, you should just be doing this. You go, well, why can't you convince me with any other method? Like, why do you have to use team players? Why do you have to make me feel like I need to be a part of things in order to use this thing? If it actually works, I shouldn't have to believe it. It should just work without me believing in it, right? I shouldn't have to go and like, oh, I totally believe in object-oriented programming. No, it should just fucking work, right? Whether I believe in it or not. Another thing I found is if you can create automation to get rid of whatever kind of like team dynamic bullshit they think is so important, then that's actually an avenue for like making a product, improving things. I mean, you saw the GitHub presentation, same kind of thing. And also learn about neuro-linguistic programming. How many people know what this is? Okay. Yeah, so learn about this and then fight it, right? I mean, pretty much everyone I know who does learn neuro-linguistic programming is sort of like a really weird pickup artist guy. So I don't know, it's like sort of strange. But so learn about this because this is some of the tactics they use in NLP they'll use on you to make this work. Okay, so number 4, mathematics. So normally mathematics are the foundation of what we do, but sometimes it's trumped up to justify stupid assertions, like programmers should not worry about order and time. I think I got that right, or like state and time or something like that. I guess Haskell guys don't bake cakes, breathe, drink, or play music, right? You know, because they bake a cake by just pouring shit into a bucket, coming back an hour later. That's how they bake a cake. The scam isn't the math. That's good stuff. Math is good, right? The scam is when it's claimed to solve all problems, okay? Usually if everyone just used X, no computer would crash. After all the X's we've seen, Haskell, formal methods, everything, have computers stopped crashing? No. So I don't think they're going to do that. You should question this kind of math, or when you question this kind of math, you're ridiculed because you don't really know their obscure branch of mathematics. I mean, math is huge, right? So for them to go like, we have this obscure branch of mathematics called category theory that says you're a fucking douchebag, right? I mean, like, well, I mean, I'm supposed to know all this crap? I mean, can't you help me out with this? So the reason why none of this stuff seems to work is because no matter what you do, you always have the halting problem. There's no way for you to analyze the bytecodes in like a library or a piece of software to tell if it's going to halt, stop, have a bug, anything like that. This is established. This is one of the things that happens. So have any of these, category theory, TDDs, communicating sequential processes, any of the software methodologies, have they solved the halting problem? No. So if they haven't solved it, then they won't keep a computer from crashing. That's it. No one of these will solve that problem. Instead, you have to use a lot of them, right? And And if they can't be explained easily, they're really not going to be useful, because the real problem in software quality is education. It's about poorly educated programmers not understanding what's going on with the shit they're using. So how is it they're going to understand more complicated shit that requires advanced mathematics to really understand it, right? I mean, it was bad enough when object-oriented programming came out and they had the Liskov substitution principle and everyone was all gaga about it. But it took years for people to understand the obscure weirdness of each language and how they wanted to do OOP, and nobody does OOP the same, right? It's the same thing with like static typing, any of these things. Not one technique is going to make a computer stable or a piece of software stable. You have to use all the techniques you get your hands on, because there's always a probability that they can crash. And obscure or invalid mathematics simply just makes this stuff work. And until they solve the halting problem, they haven't done shit. I don't know. Maybe there's a blog post that they can tell me about that's actually a paper. I don't know. Why do Haskell guys call blog post papers? That's weird, right? All right. Huh? They're all PhDs, so whatever they write's a paper. It's been peer-reviewed. I wrote a memo to my mom. It's peer-reviewed. All right. So the devil of software usability, and actually the usability of software programming language is really not researched very much. It's actually probably a totally wide open research avenue. If anyone's interested in studying like usability of it, the experiments for it would be bizarre, but I think abstractions are kind of getting out of hand. So a big source of problems for me and for I think a lot of people, and what I see when I teach people, well, like, you know, I spend most of my time now teaching people, like regular Joes. And what I see is the distance between what they have to type in the abstract linguistics, you know, the verbal description of something, and the concrete results, like what they get out of it. This is why I teach text adventure games, because the code in a text adventure game looks a lot like the text adventure game. So there's like a pretty close correlation to what they have. So for example, you ever tried to center a div in CSS? Oh, that totally erased that last one. So yeah, margin auto 0px, nothing like the concrete result, right? Does that say center anywhere in it? No. Originally there was a center tag, and they were like, oh, poo-poo, the center tag. This is so gauche. Right? And you're like, but it does what it fucking says. I say center, and it goes, you mean like this? It's like, yeah, center tag. And then CSS is like center, you mean like this? No, it's fucking center, like this. And you can't figure out why. You're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Jesus, great. You know, CSS is just fucking crazy, right? So why is it that if the code looks like the concrete result, like if the abstract description I type of something looks like the concrete result, we suddenly go, well, that's a toy. That's wrong, right? What we seem to really like is our abstractions to be as weird as fuck compared to what it's producing. We like lots of chained methods going into, and then finally the div goes over there, right? We like lots of code that's just abstract, makes us feel smart, right? So, and why do we feel like it's cheating too, right? So what happens is we take this bogus math or legit math, it can be legit math, and we add these abstractions on top of abstractions, just create more distance between it. And then everyone who does that thinks they're smart and feels smart, but actually it's so far from what they're trying to do that it causes this friction. And then they wonder why it's hard to use, right? So, you know, like the monad. Anyways, so defending against abuse of mathematics, not defending against math. Like if you defend against math, you're just a Luddite, you're a moron. But against abuse of mathematics. So if it doesn't solve the halting problem, then it's another potential heuristic. Static typing is another way to see if your code is good. So are assertions, so are testing, so is statistics, so is statistical analysis, so is static analysis, like going through source code and linting it and things like that. Anything to get your hands on to make it easier and better for the software. But it's not going to totally solve it. It's been established for a very long time that quality is a statistical process that's mostly random. It's just the way it's going to be, especially if humans are involved. So if there's no properly done empirical study, then their claims of better for programmers is also unfounded. So if they come to you and they go, static typing is easier for programmers, or if they say, object-oriented programming is easier for programmers, then no. If they haven't we did a study with 300 people, we had them try this and that, and then we found this was the result. Here's how you can replicate that experiment. Or we had this hypothesis and we did this experiment. If they have nothing like that, then it's bullshit. They're just basically talking rhetoric. And if they can't explain it to a non-programmer, this one's controversial, but I think if you can't explain your new fancy thing to a non-programmer, then you really aren't solving the education problem. Because if you can explain it to a non-programmer, I can explain a lot of complex shit to a non-programmer. But if you can't explain it to a non-programmer, then a regular programmer is probably going to have to struggle with it, right? And instead, it's only going to be the super smart guys. And usually what happens, super smart guys will do it, and then eventually someone will figure out how to explain it, and then it'll get adopted. It's kind of like what happened with object-oriented programming, right? Structured programming, things like that. So I don't think there's anybody really doing this right now. I don't think there's a lot of people who are actually building empirical evidence that their languages are usable. I think Python's one of the few that had an actual usability study, Smalltalk maybe. Not many other people. Nobody solved the halting problem. That's just always there. And very few people are trying to explain their languages to newbies. I think there's a bigger movement to do number 3, right? You know, like with my books, with other people's books, they all want to have like a book that just teaches beginners, right? So, scam number 5, logic over evidence. You'll see when someone presents evidence that's counter to rhetoric. So you say like, you know, hey, there's a memory leak in Ruby, right? And then they go, you know, you submit like a bug report, you're like, God, I keep seeing this memory leak in Ruby, my programs are crashing. And then they respond with, fuck you, there's no problem in Ruby, instead of actually trying to fix it, right? Or they'll go like, well, actually it's because the operating system is not releasing the memory. And you say, well, how come the out-of-memory killer is killing my process? Because the operating system is not releasing the memory. Well, no, that doesn't actually answer my question. And if they present evidence to you, it's always not something you can replicate, or it doesn't follow basic experimental design. So for some reason, programmers love logic and they hate evidence. So it's really easy to give you this kind of flimsy logic, some sort of like bullshit logic, right? And it, you know, like all the Kent Beck manifestos. Like it sort of seems logical. So if they make it, they couch it in academic terms, and they give it this logic veneer, and they make this all sound like, oh yeah, it sounds all official. And you just kind of turn your brain off and go, oh yeah, totally. Because like, yeah, I see some if statements in there, and it's all Boolean, makes sense to me. And it could be total bullshit. So I actually think that you can't really solve this problem. I think this is just, we work with computers all day long, and it's really hard to turn your brain, like your very logical, cut and dry, clear brain off. So instead what you got is switching to fuzzy thinking is difficult. And then when you're pressed, you just kind of like, yeah, I really want my things to be like true and false and stuff. And I think the only way evidence win is if there's money attached to it, right? I think money just solves everything, right? Or, you know, if you say like, no, it doesn't solve everything, but it definitely solves there's evidence. So for example, our A/B test says you're wrong. This page makes $1 million more. What happens? Fuck yeah, right? But this doesn't happen in open source, right? Because there's not a lot of money being made. You can't come to an open source project and go, hey, if we made this a little easier to use, you might get 40 more thousand people to have to deal with. So yeah, nobody would want to do that, right? Right? Because you got 40,000 motherfuckers in your project. Ugh. You know, and you're not really making money. Maybe it's a labor of art. So that's why you see the logic thing, I don't think you can solve. I think it's just kind of like programmers just need to get better at statistics and evidence, and that's it, right? You just have to watch for bogus logic convincing you of random shit. So shaming with unwritten social mores. So a social more is basically a rule that you're not supposed to break, but nobody tells you you're not supposed to break it. So for example, jaywalking. Some places you go, like New York, they might as well just not even have crosswalks. You just walk right fucking across the street, right? Nobody's gonna get mad at you. Here, is jaywalking okay here? Everyone seems to be really paranoid about crossing the street against the light, right? So that's an example. Another one is peeing outside. So some parts of the South, you're expected to pee outside after you drink and stuff. And some other places, you get arrested for it, you know. Random things. It's basically some unwritten law that's treated like a law. So if you don't use each in Ruby programming, you're not considered a real Ruby programmer. So they're shaming you into using it. But, you know, I thought y'all were nice, so why are you, like, you know, shitting on people because they use a for loop, right? Yeah. So, but the worst offenders of this are the agilists. I mean, they shit on everybody, right? I mean, it's like, oh, you don't TDD, you don't pair program, you don't test. I fucking test, motherfucker. My shit runs billion-dollar companies. I didn't see your shit run billion-dollar companies. Test first. You refuse to pair, you used to be a cowboy coder. Like, it's this constant shaming to get you to do things. Instead of just like convincing me with actually good arguments and evidence and things like that, it's like shaming. And I always wonder if that's like, this fear-mongering is there to make it so that it strips you of your creativity so you'll fall in line better. It's really obnoxious to me. So the shaming common threats are the following. Being ostracized from the community, right? So if you don't follow my edicts, you'll be ostracized from the community. Fear-mongering, software safety. software crashes all the time. Therefore, we must do whatever. We must do continuous integration. You know, they'll pick whatever their bugbear is. Insinuating that you'll seem like an idiot. Oh, you don't know how to do tests first? You must be a moron. You don't know static typing and category theory? You must be a moron. Or not being a real programmer, right? You know, oh, you don't know advanced calculus? You must not be a real, you don't use .each? You must not be a real programmer, right? The worst is threats of firing you. Not directly threats of firing you, but you know, like, oh, you're not going to be able to work in a professional team unless you do all these things. I'll tell you this one, the number one truth about professional teams is every one of them is crazy as fuck, and differently crazy. Like everywhere you go, they got their own brand of fucking stupid. And most of your job is going there and figuring out the fucking stupid, right? It takes you about a month to figure out the fucking stupid. And you're like, oh, they do these 5 things stupid. And then they might do some really great stuff, right? So if anyone's telling you, like, if you don't learn their specific brand of Agile, or their specific brand of this, that you're not going to be able to get a job, they're full of shit. There's a lot of places some places you go, you rock. Some places you go, you suck. That's just the way it is, right? So against the shaming, just ignore them. Get better at your tools. The tools, all these things, all the parts of Agile, all the practices, learn them all. Learn how to do all the different methodologies, all the things you do. There are tools. You pull this one out, you pull that one out. I do TDD for some things. I do test after for some things. I do fuzzing for other things. I do QA guys are great. I love people who go in and just like click on shit and find bugs because they do shit I never anticipated. Every trick you can get your hands on, running projects, statistics on how things work, do everything you can. But you ever notice how a lot of these guys don't have a lot of open source, right? You can't really go and see how they've done things, right? So also ask for their code or watch them code something new. I find that process heavy people are really bad at new creative stuff. They're good at maintenance and testing. Now that's a blanket statement. I'm sure there's some super creative people who do this, but in general, when they get stuck in the process mindset, they're not into the creativity. All right, perfect hindsight. This one's quick. Basically, you got a bug. Some pundit goes, well, if you just had done X hard enough, that wouldn't have happened. You go, all right, so you do X really, really fucking hard, you still have bugs, right? So then he goes, well, you just have to keep doing it even harder, okay? Keep praying, and I'm sure God will answer your prayers. Then he goes like, yeah, but you know, you could hire me for $2,000 a day to teach you how to do X right. That's perfect hindsight. He's not telling you beforehand any of the things. He's not giving you experience and telling you how to do stuff. What he's trying to do is make you think he's got this insight. He's so deep. But actually, he's just anticipating that everyone's going to have bugs. So if I just find everyone who's got bugs and go, yeah, well, if you did static typing, you wouldn't have that bug. Like, bullshit. I've seen people with static typing all over the place. Still got fucking buggy code, right? And also, I think you should just ignore people like that. That's the only answer. Just ignore them. Perfect hindsight's easy. Everyone can do perfect hindsight, right? Bad faith business dealings, open source is full of it. If you see a company changing the rules of open source contribution, like Node when they changed the contributor license agreement, if there's a foundation that's not for profit but seems like the same eight people keep running things, there are only people of one gender running things, that's a clear sign that they're just basically conning folks. You see codes of conduct, the authors of code of conduct don't even follow. I've seen that many times. Or straight up, if they're just propaganda tactics, probably there's just bad business dealings, backroom deals, things like that. Just assume they're making money and you're not. That's the quickest way to do it, right? Just assume, either accept that and just love hanging out with folks and doing your thing, or you know, maybe go in and like try to expose them or something. That's what I do. It's so much fun. So, hiding information or rewriting history. This one's a weird one. It took me a while to figure out this happens, right? So we've all seen this in forums. I'll give you this tiny example of it, and then on the internet, this works because nobody remembers anything except for the page that's in front of them, right? So here we go. So nobody remembers the first post, right? Works like this. So Troll says something. Zed goes, man, fuck this Scala shit. Guy insults Troll, right? Now notice I insulted Scala. Guy goes, you're a piece of shit. Now I've actually had this happen where like I insulted Erlang and some dude's like, you're a clown dick, yo. Like, I don't even know who this guy is. There's some dickhead who works at React. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, right? So then I go, you cocksucking motherfucker. Like, okay, you want to throw down with curse words? Like, you maggot-infested piece of fucking dog shit, cocksucking piece of fucking shit, fuck you. My dad was in the Navy, and I was in the Army, so I know how to curse. All right? So then the guy goes, oh, you're such an asshole. I can't believe you would insult me like that. And I go like, you insulted me. What the fuck is wrong with you, right? What happens is, it's basically a historical off by one error. right? So they don't remember the 0 and the 1, you know. They just remember me going like, you're a cocksucking motherfucker. Oh, how dare you insult me? You did this shit. So the he said, she said kind of crap, they rewrite it. And what they do is they'll bait you in fighting back, and then they go, oh, you're so uncouth and so crass. This is even better when their insult is that, like, they try to Oscar Wilde it. You know, my favorite quote from Oscar Wilde is that on his deathbed he said, either these blinds go or I do. Right? That is great, right? But they try to go like passive-aggressively insult you like they're so clever. And the only answer to that is, fuck you. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're so crass. Well, I don't care if you insult me first, you're a dickhead, right? So that's the mini version of it. Everyone's seen that on like a chat room, Hacker News, everything. It's so common. It drove me crazy. I'm like, don't you have it? And then I realized, oh, they're doing it on purpose. They're rewriting history. So you see this in the debates in programmer communities and online. They see the trolls come in, and then all anyone sees is the last opinion that validates their belief system, right? They're like desperately looking for the troll to lose. And then they see this guy go, oh, well, that troll's just an asshole. You see how he insulted me, right? So that's how they get you to not listen to the trolls. Now, sometimes the trolls are just people trying to say, hey, I don't think this is the way to do things. Another one is rewriting information to cover up mistakes. I've seen Wikipedia edits, Crunchbase edits, just like, you know, basically just going like, oh, no, we never did that. No, we never said that. And you go like, yeah, you did. I have this thing. No, we never said that. It's really easy to rewrite history on the internet. So the final one that sort of irritates me, and also that I'm guilty of, is actively destroying other communities, right? Now, for me, this is just sort of a hobby. I think I'm probably the only professional destroyer of communities. You know, I'm like, it's just something fun. You know, maybe on a Saturday I see Microsoft has like a blog up, and I'm like, oh, I could do a parody of that. And like, bam, you know, and yeah, it's fun. Anyways, but also I sort of hate community. For me, it's all about individuals. It's the people who are in the communities that are important. I mean, my big thing now is teaching people, and it's all about the individuals. I have this thing, there's a difference between indoctrination and education, okay? Indoctrination is about making someone dependent on you by giving them only the information you want them to have. And education is about giving them all the information they can possibly have so they can then go on and do their own thing, right? And making it so that they can make their own decisions and they're independent. Now, in like state-controlled education, that gets mixed, right? But in general, they don't want you to have to keep coming back to high school to do your math, right? They want you to get the fuck out because it's expensive that way. But in a lot of software communities, they confuse education with indoctrination. They want to make you dependent on their agile processes or their consulting or their programming tools or this and that, right? So for me, I hate communities because I see too much indoctrination in a community, but I like individuals because that's an opportunity to actually do education and make them independent, right? And in general, people survive communities. Communities die every about 10 years, but people keep going on, hopefully living for like 50 to 70 years, right? So when people say, I love community, what they mean is, I love my community that's paying me money, right? They don't actually mean they love the idea of community, right? Because you'll see them actively go out and destroy other communities. You saw this. If you see this, there's this video with DHH and Adrian Holovati. So Adrian is a really super nice guy, one of the guys who started Django, and DHH basically just rips into him, saying like, why does Python have so many frameworks? You guys are fucking assholes. He doesn't say that exactly, but pretty much, you know. And Adrian's a nice dude, plays guitar, right? I mean, he's a badass gypsy jazz guitarist. He's a super nice dude, and DHH is just a dick, right? And so what happens is, he's actively trying to destroy Python. Now, fast forward a few years, the reason why Python had so many web frameworks and stuff was because people were actually using Python, not Ruby. So they had some. And then after people started using Ruby, how many web frameworks are there? Like, I'm responsible for probably 15 just by writing Mongo, right? I mean, there's probably what, 20, 25. You have one. I mean, you have an experimental one just to show people how to do it differently that's layered on Rails, right? No Rails? Okay, so at least that's a bonus, you know, right? You know? Okay, so yeah, he was a dick, you know? I mean, like, who gives a shit if he was down to it? Now, he did show up to like a few Python things and stuff like that, but if he was actually into community, he'd be about helping other communities and helping other people, right? But he's a dick. He likes destroying communities. That's what he does, right? So no, these guys aren't into it. They'll wax hypothetical about how awesome communities. They go on stage like, oh yeah, this is how we run these communities, blah, blah, blah. And then they seem to throw out community all the time. If they were into community, they'd be inclusive of people from other places, right? But one thing I find irritating is they go to a guy like me and they're like, oh, Zed's a Python programmer now, or Zed's a Lua programmer. It's like, motherfucker, I'm a programmer. Like, I'm not a this programmer or that programmer. The language doesn't define me. I make shit I want to make in any language. I try to make it good in any language. You give me a shitty language, I'll try to make some good software with it, right? So, like, fuck you. I'm a programmer. I'm not your community whore, right? So how do you defend against the community destroyers? Well, report on them. Like, hey, I heard that this guy is trying to do this thing, or this backroom deal is happening, or they're trying to exclude this conference, this rival conference, things like that, right? Responding in kind. Like, the easiest way to just, like, fight, if someone's trying to destroy, like, your friends and your community, try to be positive about it, but sometimes, you just got to say, fuck those guys, right? Tell everyone what's going on, right? And also, straight up just programming, right? Just making shit. It's really hard to argue. One of the reasons why I really admire Django is Rails exploded, right? And everyone was into it. And the Django guys just kept building stuff. They kept trugging along, making good stuff, building things, making it better, listening to people, being very conservative about how they build things. And then Rails kind of starts going on the downslide, and Django just keeps going and going and going. And now Django is, I'd have to say, Django is actually more popular among a lot of places than Rails is. And it's solid, works really well, And that's what it does. If you just kind of build and keep making awesome things, you can usually fight a lot of the scams, like almost all of these scams, right? And so if programming motherfucker is so important, cool, I got a good time. What is programming motherfucker? I get a lot of people come and ask me, what is programming motherfucker? Could you define it for me? People invite me to conferences. Hey, would you come to this Agile conference and debate us on programming motherfucker versus XP? Maybe. So it's a fucking joke. Like, I don't get people who don't get it's a joke, right? I think that's the best part of the joke, is there's people who don't get it's a joke, right? That's the fun of the internet. Nobody knows if you're serious. I love that, So I'm amazed I get invited to these conferences, right? Because, their head has to be really far up their ass. I'm like, could you have an intelligent debate about programming motherfucker versus extreme programming? Like, well, I don't know. Extreme programming is pretty badass, but I've got motherfucker in my title, right? Like, hey, I think I win on the fuck you establishment, So the worst, though, is the people who hear programming motherfucker, right? You get these process-centric guys, and they hear programming motherfucker, and then they're like, I gotta take a drink before I land this joke. The joke is ruined now. And then they go, well, just writing code doesn't work. Okay, well, first off, actually, nothing works unless you write code. So take everything. Take the GUI guys. Take the CEOs. Take all those guys. Marketing. Everything you can think about a business, right? Okay? Take those guys away. All you have are the coders. Can they make something? Yeah. Okay, now take the coders away and put a bunch of those other guys in a room. Can they make something? No. Okay, so there you go, right? All right. So the thing is, when I think of programming, right, totally, I think it's shitting characters into files. That's programming for me. It's not, designing the GUIs and talking to people and coming up with designs and doing models and analysis and thinking and solving problems and puzzles and doing testing and all that stuff. That's not programming. Programming is clearly just, hey, why don't we just, the coders go off and, they're like the assembly workers. They go tick, 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 and then we real people, the process people, make the real software after that. Nah, bullshit, right? I just sat down and I made Inculcate Me by myself in about a month. I'm going to sell my courses on that site. There you go, right? By myself. Well, how did I do it? I went to Theme Forest, and I go, that one looks good, and then I coded the shit behind it. That's it. Super simple, right? Now, I know what I'm doing, but that's programming to me. Making software is programming, not like all the little tasks in it. It depends. The tasks you do depend on what the fuck you're making, right? So like, one thing I'm sick of is talking about process. Right? I think all programming motherfucker is just a joke. It sort of gives you something to like laugh about. When you're working someplace that doesn't do programming and thinks they're making software, you can just go programming motherfucker and you can fix it. But there's something else. I've noticed as I teach people, they let a lot of the mantras from all the people telling them how they should write software. There's all these people who tell you how to write software who don't actually really write software on their own and don't love making their own software. And they tell you, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. But they don't just go like, but first, you should just have fun. You should be able to create something. And that fear causes your creativity to suffer. So I built this website by myself, and I'm going to do it as a course, but I started off doing it half-assed, right? And this is the process that I use. Okay, this is like my minimum viable process, the MVP. Okay, so I made a list of shit to do, and I did that shit, and I checked that shit was good, and then I repeated it. Okay, if you notice, there's people who come to you with like all these massive processes, and you'll run into some that just don't have this, a list of shit to do, and you do it. Like I roll into a company, I see guys just like floundering around, not really coordinating, and I'm like, all right, let's like make a list of shit to do. And like you see this in startup worlds, they go, oh, that sounds like a process. Fuck you. I'm not a process. I'm a creative guy. Like I'm a creative guy, and this is the process I use. I make a list of shit to do, and I do it. You know? So I'm kind of sick of talking about process. So what I did is I decided I was going to see, hey, no process. I'm just going to like, bam, creatively hack this motherfucker out. No unit tests. I'm like, oh my fucking God, no unit tests, right? Okay. And I'm just like, I'm gonna do a course, a little video course of me making the shit at first, and it works, and then tightening it. I'm gonna like add the real professional thing. Because what I see is a lot of people are afraid of just sitting down and just hacking, just putting something together. Then they feel shame, so they don't try it. But I wanna see, can I show people, look, even if you just sort of like fuck off and make crap, can you make it better later? And then just show people, yeah, you can totally do it. For years, I would roll into companies and basically just like help them improve their software by helping them write unit tests and get testing quality up, right? So, angels didn't die, right? Nobody came and killed me, right? You know, the devil didn't eat my family. My shit still runs. I had like one bug so far. I mean, I'm sure there's others, you know. It ran. It's a little Django app, right? It's pretty easy to do it. I'm still alive. Yeah, nothing wrong. Nothing happened, right? All these people are telling me like, oh, the world's gonna end. You're not gonna get a job. You're not gonna be able to put anything together. They're kind of full of shit. So maybe there's something to this, like just fuck it, code it up, right? If you're stuck, if you're creatively stuck, you have an idea, and you first thing you do is like, well, I gotta get my testing infrastructure together, and let's put up a little, you know, Kanban board, and let's do all that crap. No, you're missing the one and most important fun thing about programming, just fucking coding it up. There's no shame in it. You're not gonna go to jail. Nobody's gonna make fun of you or hurt you or anything. Because honestly, all the people talking endlessly about process don't seem to produce nearly as much solid shit as I do. So there must be something I'm doing, right? And actually, I'd rather just play and build guitars anyways. So I'm just sort of like done with process, that kind of bullshit. So what I'm going to say in closing is this. Ignore the propaganda and the scams, you know, or fight them, go with it. Focus on your skills, your techniques. Right? Fight the fear. What happens is this propaganda, its goal is to make fear. That's why they make enemies. That's why they shame you. That's why they do these things. Because if you're afraid, then you're more pliable, right? So ditch the fear. Go and actually make some shit. Just fucking hack, you know? Get drunk, hack some shit while you're watching Battlestar Galactica, or what the fuck you like to watch, right? Learn all the languages. Fuck this whole like community thing. I think this is a big difference between Ruby conferences I've been to before and this one here. I think Ruby people now are very into other languages. I think in the past they weren't so much into other languages. So I think that's a good thing. Python conferences too, but I haven't been to many other places yet. Python, Ruby mostly. So it's kind of like, it's interesting to see now there's much more interplay between the languages, but still people are kind of like, you know, you're diehard Ruby. Go to some other conferences. Hit some Clojure conferences, hit some Python conferences, see how things work, right? And if you get an idea and you're feeling creative, then fuck it, just code it, right? Just fucking code it. Who gives a shit? You're not gonna go to jail. Because the fear will kill your creativity and it'll make it harder for you to make something, right? Especially if you're a beginner, right? Don't worry about getting it wrong, just worry about getting it to work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Zeb. Are there any questions?
I have t-shirts too.
Hands. Oh, nice.
So really quick, I'm just going to throw these out. Someone asked me to throw out these senior dev t-shirts. Okay, right. A little better. It's a fucking t-shirt. I mean, jeez. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm right-handed, so they got all the t-shirts. There you go. Okay, I think I did good on time, so we got about 7 minutes for questions. Yeah, go for it.
So, I'm just curious, do you still troll these days? Or when you troll, are you actually trying to expose something you think is a real problem, or you troll for the fun of it?
No, I actually don't troll. I actually just state my honest opinion.
Okay, so...
Yeah.
I mean, when you're... Sorry, okay, so when you're out there and you actually just say, hey, this is what I believe in, and other people say, well, that has to be a troll because it's against what I believe. And that's the type of thing we need to avoid, just ostracizing the person that says what they believe is what you're suggesting.
Right. And the thing is, I make sure I always back up what I say. And I admit when I'm wrong when people say I'm wrong, right? But, I mean, it's not like I'm going out and saying, like I say obnoxious shit. Now, if you hear me say something that's really fucking obnoxious, then, yeah, usually that guy was a dick to me. So, Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, you were talking about static typing and how it can harm, and I totally see how in maybe Java or C# it's like half-baked static typing. It makes you believe it's static type, and actually a lot depend on runtime values. But do you really do you see the value, or what do you think about static typing? Like when on one scale you have Ruby, which has very few static typing, and then Haskell on the other scale. On the other end of the scale, what's your value on static?
I think static typing is actually just a subclass of a more generalized assertion system, and that actually I think we could make something that was a useful compile time, runtime, or link time assertion system. But we seem to be dancing about it, right? Because you can make an assertion system designed by contract does this, and it's proven to be similar to a lot of other logics, right? So what I see is I see people are fascinated by static typing, but I don't think it actually is the best solution. Yeah, it's a good solution. I use it if I can. Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much. Oh, we have one. Wait, one more.
I was just to say, have you ever seriously thought about accepting one of the agile conferences and just going there and saying?
Yes. Yeah, I've been to like 3.
Oh, really?
And I'm not. Yeah. I save a few of them. No, what happens? So actually, I'm going to record this and put this online because I found out I rip them to shreds, and then they don't put it online. So yeah, so I take my presentation and put it online, yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to be at AuraDev, I think is the next one. Right. Yeah, cool. All right, anybody else? All right, cool, thank you. Oh, more. You got to be quick.
Do you follow a similar approach to your guitar building?
My guitar building? No, one of the reasons why I like guitar is it's very illogical, messy, physical. So I throw all the logic and crap out of the way, But I do use Python to find things in music theory. So what I do is, like, for example, I'll take the jazz chords in a song, and I've got a Python script where I can lay out the chords for notes, and then I'll go through all the permutations of pentatonic scales or, say, harmonic minor scales or whatever, and see which one's the most efficient set I could play, and then I'll try to play that. So, but that's the only, like, programming style thing. For me, guitar is an escape. I actually just find that guitar makes me calm and nicer and stuff. And programming, I actually recently started learning to sing so that I could fix my voice because I stress it. And one of the things I found is when I code, I do like this weird screaming thing with my throat. Yeah, it just pisses me off. So, for my health. But no, yeah. For the guitar building, it's not very logical. I find diagrams online and solder shit together, try it out. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, now we're done. Thank you.